Hello, everybody, because I think a lot of people will be watching this replay. So for those of you who are new, my name is Nat, and I run a business called Girl in Motion. And one of the things I do as part of Girl in Motion is I have an online membership, and I work with a lovely group of women from around the world. And I help them start a service-based business. And one of the things we do is we have masterclasses every month on topics that relate to starting and building a business. And this is one of those masterclasses. So, but for this one, just for this time, I've decided to open the doors to people within my wider community. And this was a last minute decision, right? We didn't plan this. I literally sent Siobhan an email on Sunday saying like, oh my God, I really feel like it's such an amazing topic. I really feel like we should open the doors to other people that may benefit from hearing what you want to say. And of course, Siobhan said, yes, do it. Yeah, and, you know, doing what I do, I come across lots of women that are, you know, crazy talented. You know, they have such amazing experience and work experience and life experience and, you know, degree on top of degree. And they're so good at what they do, and they really want to start a business. But for some reason, they just can't get over the mental hurdle. And they, you know, suffer from imposter syndrome or self-doubt. And they just can't seem to take that step. You know, so when it's time to get started and put themselves out there, they just find it hard to do, and it's all that chatter in their minds. So that's why I wanted to open the doors, so more people can hear what Siobhan has to say. And like she says, you know, this is we're going to talk about the brain and mindset within the context of starting a business or running a business, but this will help. You know, in all aspects of our lives, because like she says, our brain is always with us, right? Whatever we do, the brain is always there. All right, so that's enough about me. I'm gonna introduce you to the lovely Siobhan. You know, I've known Siobhan for a couple of years now, We work on a project, and I really, really love what she does, because there's lots of coaches out there, but I think she has such an interesting angle and such an unique view. So that's what I really wanted to come today and do this masterclass. Yeah, so without any further ado, here's Siobhan. Hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. It's just such a bloody delight to just be here and just hang out with your group. And I'm really hoping that people we'll get something out of our chat today. So thank you again for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here. So what I thought I'd do is I'll just tell people what I have in mind. So in a minute, I'm going to give you a 50-second introduction to me and why you may want to listen to me, possibly. Then we're going to talk about the nature of thoughts and feelings. So Natalia said then that, yeah, we're going to look at this in a kind of a business perspective, but we're always thinking and feeling, and whatever's going on the outside is not as important as what's going on the inside. So whether it's your business, whether it's your relationship, whether it's your kids, it's kind of not that it doesn't matter, but it's the way that we're experiencing those things through our thoughts and feelings is still the same. So if you haven't got a business yet, or you've got another thing that maybe is causing you trouble, then this conversation will be relevant to you too. But we're going to talk about the nature of thoughts and feelings, and then we're going to look at that through the lens of some business examples. And then I'm going to open it up to live questions from anyone that's here. And then if we've got time, we'll answer the questions that were put in Nat's group. And if we haven't got time for that, I'll answer them in a video and then post them. So I hope that's okay with everybody. So I'll begin by just telling you very quickly about me. I became a coach a number of years ago now. After I had some coaching, I just felt like everything was going great in my life, but I had this like really strange feeling of like dread all the time, and it just didn't make sense. So I had one coaching session and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. Is this a thing? Can I do this as a job? And then I kind of had the thought that once I understood what coaching was, which is basically just asking questions and listening, that I'd been coaching people in the toilets of nightclubs for about a decade, but didn't realize it. So I feel like I had lots of experience then. So if anyone has ever had a deep talk with a stranger in a nightclub toilet, then you can probably be a coach too. So the reason why I think I might be helpful to you today, or why you're even here and listening, is because I am a human with a human brain, just like you. And I also have a business, just like many people do here as well. And I also have coached loads and loads of people, hundreds of people now by this point, around overthinking, anxiety, overwhelm, self-doubt, and all those things. So let's get started. So today, the main thing, well, the kind of masthead, I suppose, for our conversation, which is how Nat set me up, was how to find freedom from anxiety, overthinking, and self-doubt as business owners. So whether you're here live or listening onto the recording, so hands up, and Nat, I want you to do this as well. Hands up, who experiences anxiety, overthinking, self-doubt, or insecurity? Okay. And then hands up who also experiences all the other things like confusion, overwhelm, worry, fear, all the things. Okay. So I really would love for you to get a feel for how fucking normal that is. And we're going to talk about that a lot more in a bit. But before we really start, here's something that I want you to consider. So just lightly see what comes to mind when I say this. But check in with yourself about what you secretly hope or expect is going to happen from this session. Now, what I mean by that is, do you think that I'm going to share something which is just going to unlock everything for you, right? Do you think that there's something missing from you, like you're the broken one, everyone else is doing fine, everyone else can get on with building their business without all the mind drama, but do you think, oh no, I'm just missing a thing, maybe Siobhan will share it with me, maybe it's somewhere else, maybe I need to spend thousands of dollars on a course, whatever. But it's kind of interesting just to see what do we think is even wrong here? Like, do we think that there's something in us which is missing? And do you think that I'm going to be sharing that with you today? Now, I ask this as well because often we don't even question where like the assumptions of our thoughts and feelings even come from anyway. Like we're not taught about thoughts and feelings in school or any of that. It's kind of baffling. We're just left to figure it out for ourselves. And then we get into adulthood and we're like, I'm anxious all the time. What the hell? So I asked that question as well about what do you maybe think would happen? What would you secretly love? Because all throughout my life, I thought there was something wrong with me for sure. Like everyone else just seemed to be getting on with everything fine, but I was just filled with like self-doubt and insecurity over anything. That was before I even had a business. And I spent a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of energy trying to figure out what was the thing. Okay. Now, if there is a thing, if there's a thing out there, then how come we don't all know about it, right? Because we live in an age now where there's so much information on the internet. So if there is a secret to unlock like freedom from insecurity and overthinking and all the things, how come we don't know about it? Like, how come so many of us are still suffering? Okay, so I want to let you know a massive, massive spoiler. So your feelings of self-doubt and insecurity and worry and all the things, they are never going to go away completely. Okay. Now, this sounds awful, doesn't it? It sounds like really bad news, but actually it's not, because how you feel, those feelings are not what you think they are. Okay. So those feelings do not need to be managed or controlled or changed, even though they feel like ass. Okay. But what we're going to kind of be exploring today is that our feelings are misunderstood. Okay. And when we see them in a fresh way and understand what they mean, which is contrary to what we're kind of shown or taught that they mean, the experience of feeling them changes. So an example of that would be if you moved into a lovely new apartment and you realize too late that it's right on a train track, but you don't realize it's a train track at first. And so the first time a train goes by, you're like, oh my God, it's an earthquake. And you have like all this catastrophizing thinking and you think everything's going to be terrible. But then you realize, oh, it's just the train track and the trains are going past, like, let's say every hour. But that's annoying as well. So firstly, we think our feelings are an earthquake, and then we realize, oh, they're just a feeling, but hold on, they're coming around all the time and it sucks. But the kind of thing that we're looking at and the direction we're going to be like looking toward is understanding the benign nature of feelings and how they mean something different to what society tells us, so that over time, we don't even hear the train track anymore, the train going on the track rather, okay? So when I say, oh, hey, spoiler, you're always going to feel insecure, it won't mean the same thing. Okay, so let's get into it a bit more so you can understand what I mean rather than me just talking about train tracks. Now, I love that Nat said this as well, is that maybe what I do compared to all the other coaches on the internet, which at last count was about 95 billion. So what we do and what I do with my clients is a bit different, okay? So there's a ton of mindset stuff out there. There's a ton of modalities and techniques and tools and all the things for anxiety. Like, you can't frigging move for that. And that's fine. If that's helping people, then brilliant. But what's been kind of curious in my work is that I don't understand why we're not feeling better as a race. Like, mental health illnesses and all the stats around that are going up and up and up. There's more disorders than ever. More people are taking medication than ever. Like, we're reading all the time about like burnout and all these disorders and all the things. And I just can't, like, it seems to me, hold on, that doesn't really make sense. If we've got more access than ever to experts giving out free advice and like low cost courses and therapy, and like access to help and information is at its highest it's ever been, yet we feel the worst that we've ever been. Like, just consider that for a second. Like, doesn't that feel like there's a disconnect there? Like, why is that? It doesn't make sense. And what it seems to me, the reason for that is because we are looking in the wrong direction about what actually is the problem here. So we're looking at something like insecurity, anxiety, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, and we're trying to treat those things like, oh, hey, given that I'm insecure, what do I do? Given that I have imposter syndrome, how do I manage that? Okay. So that's not what I do at all. We look towards the nature of our human experience. Like, what are thoughts and feelings? Like, how do they even work? Okay. And by understanding them, that changes the experience of them, like with the train track thing. So hopefully you'll be pleased to hear this, but I'm not going to be doing any tools or techniques or strategies with you. There'll be no homework. We're not going to be doing anything like meditations or mindfulness or gratitude journaling or affirmations or examining your beliefs and changing your beliefs and all of that. We're not because they're wrong, but just because it's not necessarily where we want to be looking. We want to be seeing something fresh and new, not the stuff that's already out there on the internet. Okay, so if you enjoy gratitude journaling or meditating or any of that stuff, fine, like that's fine, and I don't necessarily have an opinion on that. What I am saying is, hey, let's look over in this direction a minute before we say, oh, I've got imposter syndrome, how do I treat that? Oh, I'm insecure, how do I manage that? Let's be like, what even is imposter syndrome? Like, how are we experiencing that? Like, what? And let's get a bit curious about what's going on before we've decided that things are syndromes or disorders or the feelings are bad. So just to let you know as well, I've just got a couple of notes here that I just wanted to make sure that I covered some stuff with you. So I might be looking at that from now, from time to time. Okay, so all that being said, where do our feelings come from? So if we feel anxious or insecure or doubtful or worried or any of those, it really looks like it comes from the things that are happening in the world. Like it looks like it comes from, like overwhelm looks like it comes from having a ton to do. And it looks like feelings of like self-doubt comes from a lack of experience, or feeling worry comes from like a lack of profits, or all sorts of other metrics around our business or our life. Like we haven't got enough customers, we don't have enough resources, we don't know enough, we haven't got the right tool or system in place, we don't have enough people on our email list, any of that. So it really looks like all these things in the outside world create how we feel. And it really looks like that, doesn't it? It really looks like that, just like it looks like the sun revolves around the earth. It looks like that in the sky, and we still call it a sunrise and we call it a sunset, but we know it's not what it seems. So I'd love, and hey, I forgot an important thing. Don't just listen to what I say, okay? I'm not coming in here like, oh, hey, I know how everything works, so listen to me. No, this is more like, oh, let's explore maybe a different way of looking at something together. And then you see what you see about that. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to anyone really. Like, see what your experience is and be like, oh, I guess I never thought about it that way. Or, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Or, no, okay. So only you will know what kind of resonates with you and what is worth maybe lightly exploring yourself. So don't just listen to what I say. See what kind of like resonates with you and like what pings with you. Like, oh, okay. So it looks like our feelings are coming from the circumstances of our lives. But our feelings are only ever giving us feedback on our thinking, okay? So our feelings are the felt experience of our thoughts. So I kind of say that thoughts and feelings are the same thing, but humans love to like chop things up and label them and try and categorize them and all the things. But whatever you think, you kind of feel. It's the felt experience. Your feeling is how your thinking feels. I'll come on to that a bit more in a minute. So just kind of try that on. So you're not feeling the world. You're not feeling your massively like full calendar. You're not feeling your bank balance. You're not feeling like your profits or any of that. You're not feeling how your marketing campaign is going. Those things don't create feelings. What creates feelings are your thoughts. So you're feeling what you're thinking about. Now, so what? Okay, so why does this even matter anyway? So everything that we experience, so what I call like our experience is like, I guess, the sum total of what we're feeling and doing or whatever, our experience in each moment. That comes to us from our thinking. So I'm not saying that the world isn't real. The world is real. There is an objective reality out there, but we never experience that. Each one of us, every single one of us, has a completely different experience of the same thing, even if it's very similar, but it will be nuanced. Okay. And you can see a simple example of this is watching a movie, right, with someone, and they're like, oh my God, that movie is amazing. And you're like, it's awful. And so the movie is objective, this objective thing, but our experience of the movie is informed by our own thinking. And that is kind of complex and full of nuance and layers. So our own thinking is informed by, firstly, evolution. So we've all got a brain that cares only about keeping us alive long enough to pass on your genes to the next generation. Okay, fine. It doesn't care about any hopes or dreams or business or anything like that. It doesn't care about any of that. A brain only wants to keep you alive. And this becomes really relevant when we look at something like business. Like, the worst thing to a brain that cares only about your survival is uncertainty. Okay. And can you think of anything which is more riddled with uncertainty than trying to start and then grow your own business, where you're just like, ah? So a brain is going to hate that. A brain is going to just hate that. It doesn't know what's going on. So that is like the evolutionary part of what's happening. So no wonder you have thoughts like, I can't do this, or this is hard, or what's going to happen, and blah, blah, blah. No wonder, okay? Because you have a human brain, just like me, just like anyone. So having those thoughts is not a problem, okay? Just kind of understanding where they come from, like evolution, like, oh yeah, duh, okay. So having them and understanding them can kind of neutralize them. Just because you have a thought, it doesn't mean anything. Okay, a thought is just like legacy messages from a brain. And then some of the other influences of what we think, like one of the questions in the group was, why do we have thoughts of self-doubt or something like that? And we have them through the kind of influences that I'm explaining. So one of them is evolution, and another one is society. Okay, so we live in a culture that reveres productivity, efficiency, success, output. Like, we have those messages everywhere, and we don't even kind of realize that we're influenced by them. Like, we may see, I don't know, people out there like Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if anyone knows him, but he's like, hustle, hustle, hustle. And so we can kind of see that we are exposed to these kind of messages, but I don't even mean the influences out there. I mean more, excuse me, like the insidious water of capitalism, I guess, or whatever. You don't even need to label it that way. But we don't even realize that we're influenced by this. We don't even realize how we are intrinsically like measured by what we're doing. Like, that's why we're like, you need to do this in school, then you need to get a job and all of that. It's like, fine, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with any of this. Just understanding, oh, of course I feel like I'm not good enough. Of course I feel like I'm not making enough money. Of course I feel like I should be further along by now. Of course I feel worthless next to that person, that person, that person, because we live in a society that is focused on competition and success and all the things I just said. So once again, no wonder you have these thoughts to begin with. So the thoughts themselves are not a problem. They're not even yours. They're not yours. They're not about you, even though it sounds like they are. Like, Siobhan, you really should have more clients, or Siobhan, you really should be like making more money by now, or Siobhan, you really should have already done this by your age. it's like if you've got email service provider, it's like the merge field, right? So your brain is like sending out a message to everyone, saying the same thing, which is some flavor of what you're doing right now is not good enough, okay? But it seems like these messages are personalized for us because the merge field is our name. So it's like, oh, hey, Siobhan, you know, you really should be better than what you are right now. And everyone's getting some version of this personalized for them with their merge field. But the email is from the brain that is steeped in evolution and society and culture. It's not personal to you, it's not personal to me, but it really feels like it is. But just kind of seeing that, like, oh, no wonder I feel like I'm not good enough, because of the influences, like the brain doesn't want you to do a scary thing, and then society, and then we've not even touched on your individual experience, like your parents and what they believed. I mean, this is going back generations and generations, like the kind of household you grew up in, what were your earlier influences around money and success and taking risks and all the stuff that we're confronted with as business owners. So you all had an individual experience of that too, just like me, just like everyone. That's maybe why some people seem like they're more chilled out about stuff. Some people seem like they're happier to take risks. It's all through our own individual, completely bespoke thought system, like our own thought algorithm. So I hope that gives you just a little sense of why we get these thoughts in the first place. So as best you can, and you've got a human brain, so you don't really have much control over this, but as best you can, just consider, oh, what if the thoughts that I'm having, which everyone is having to some degree, but maybe different flavors, like yours might be about business, other people it's about, well, all sorts of things, it could be anything. But, oh, of course I'm having thoughts that I'm not good enough in whatever flavor that looks like. But what if that doesn't actually mean anything? Like, what if everyone just gets them? It's just part of being human. And the problem is that I've been taking them seriously and thinking that they're important messages for me, about me, and I must do something about them. So consider, what if that's not true? And again, you don't have to believe this, but just consider what that would be like if we would get some space from the personalization of these thoughts, and what that would mean if we didn't engage with them or think that they meant something. Because here's the thing about thoughts. So we touched on there why we may have the thoughts that we have. Okay, so evolution, society, and our individual experience. Thanks. But here's the thing about thoughts, which we don't talk about enough. We don't even kind of notice it. But our thoughts are always changing, always, okay? So, and you can kind of try this yourself. Like I've done this with clients and also with myself, where you set a timer, right, for like 11 minutes. Don't do it now though, because we're all talking, but do it after this call. And like when the timer goes off, like try and think of the last thought you had that which wasn't, oh, there's the timer. What were you thinking before then? And you'll there's no way you can predict that. You don't know what you're going to be thinking in 1 minute, 5 minutes, this time tomorrow, anything. We simply do not know what we're going to be thinking. And if anyone has ever spent any time doing a mindfulness thing or meditation, and you like watch your thoughts, oh my God, like what the hell? Like there's so much random stuff, and you'll see it go jumping from thing to thing. And you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this. So when you take a look at that, and when you really get a feel for the random, arbitrary, contradictory nature of the thoughts which are plopping into our mind, it's kind of funny and mind-blowing that we pay so much attention to them. So really kind of lightly look at this. You don't have any control over what comes into your mind. Okay, none of us do. Like you've probably heard of the when people like don't think of a brown bear or whatever, and then of course all you can think about is a brown bear. Like if you've ever tried to stop thinking about a thing, you'll probably find that you can't, because the very act of trying to stop it keeps it in place. So what have we got so far? So we've got a ton of influences which are informing the types of thoughts that we have, thoughts that are basically some kind of flavor of you're not good enough and you should be better, right? And we can't control our thoughts, right? We don't know what they're going to do or anything like that. So that sounds pretty crap so far, doesn't it? Well, we've got all these things, these influences which are informing our thoughts, and they're basically negative. And then we can't control them. But, and here's like an enormous thing which so many of us are not shown. And this is kind of goes back to what I was saying about maybe like mental health issues are like just worse than ever, and so many people are struggling, and we're all just having a really shitty time in life because we're completely innocently identifying with these thoughts which are coming into our mind, even though they have nothing to do with us, right? But we feel like they do, and we're kind of shown that through society. But what if we got that wrong? Okay, so what if we've spent all this time engaging with our thinking that our thinking is giving us important messages about ourselves, about our situation, about our business, about the past, about the future, like blah, 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 blah. We think nonstop all the time. Like, no wonder we kind of think it's important. But what if it's not? What if we are experiencing just a ton of these like legacy thoughts, which are just to do with keeping us alive, or just to do with like the society and the culture that we live in? But what if we didn't listen to them? Okay, and I don't mean that in a just don't listen to your thoughts kind of way, more like, what if we kind of saw thought for what it is, which is an uncontrollable thing that pops into our mind from nowhere, from a ton of different influences that we can't control, we have no say over. These thoughts are plopping into our mind, we've got no idea what's going to happen next. So what if we saw that for what it was, which is just this enormous uncontrollable mess of messages, right? And stopped engaging so much in this, because it's random and we can't control it. So why should we be at the mercy of it? So when I was first exploring this stuff a few years ago, one of my questions at the time was like, okay, but if we don't think, if we don't pay attention to our thinking, how do we navigate life? Like, how do I decide what to wear in the morning? And how do I decide what to do in my business and all of that, right? So, and if you're having that question, then very good. Now, here's the thing, is that we have, and I'm going to answer that shortly, but here's where the feeling thing comes into it again. So I mentioned that it looks to me, and in the kind of work I do and my colleagues, that we feel our thinking, okay? Our feelings are the felt experience of what's coming into our mind. So as we kind of already touched on, everything that we experience is brought to us by thought. So we think, we experience life through the vehicle of our thinking. And then we just took a quick look at how that thinking is often full of shit, right? It's uncontrollable and it's informed by all these other influences. So what if our feeling, and these are kind of human labels that we make up, but that's okay, like what we call anxiety, insecurity, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, all of that. Those feelings, those like icky, horrid, squirmy, like crawl out of your skin, horrid, those feelings are letting us know that we are engaging innocently and believing these erroneous, uncontrollable, completely impersonal, nothing to do with us, like legacy thinking from evolution and society and all the things. They're coming through to us. We're getting the email with our merge field with our name on it, and we're thinking it's for us. But those emails, to go back to the rubbish email metaphor, but that email has been sent out to 9 billion people, 8 billion people. Like the that scams you see, right, where people do these elaborate scams and like oh, you've won $1 million, you just need to transfer me 50,000 or whatever and I'll send you the money. Like, we think that's for us. Everyone is getting these emails saying you're not good enough. I'm mixing my metaphors here, but hopefully you can stay with me. So we are feeling the shitty feelings that feel just so awful. And if you run a business, you probably feel them a lot. Me too, okay? But the feeling is letting us know when we think that the scam email is for us. We think that the thoughts we are thinking are for us. So if I'm having a feeling of insecurity, I'm probably thinking, oh, I can't do this, or I should be further along by now, or I need X, Y, and Z in order to whatever metric that we kind of like absorb from society. So I'm having a ton of thinking that's making me feel insecure. The feeling of insecurity, that horrid, shitty feeling, is letting me know, oh, hey, Siobhan, like you're engaging with all this thought, which seems like it's for you. It seems like it's telling you about your life and your business and your worth and your skills. But what if it's not, okay? What if our feeling is only letting us know not to trust our thinking in that moment? What if our feeling is never giving us feedback on what's happening in the world? It's only giving us feedback on the trustworthiness of our thinking in the moment, or said another way, the quality of our thoughts in the moment. If you take a look at how humans relate to their feelings right now, we think that they are a massive problem. We think that if we feel insecure and anxious and all the things, that there's a problem out there or with us that we need to solve. Something bad is happening or is about to happen, or all manner of things. So when we have a shitty feeling, it feels like a problem. So we try and manage our feelings. We try and control our feelings. We go on the internet and try 1 billion different techniques to change or manage the feeling. But what if how we feel is actually like an amazing, incredible alert system? Like, imagine if you had like an app, right? An app that would just like ping you when you are innocently and mistakenly believing just a load of bullshit. Like, I would definitely download that app, but you don't need to, because you've already got your feeling to show you. So when you are feeling insecure and full of self-doubt and just worried and all the things, that feeling is letting you know that your thinking is just way too much thinking, innocently, like rolling around thinking that it means something about you. But the feeling is letting you know, hey, you don't need to listen to that. You've got a very busy mind right now. The thoughts seem really personal, but they're nothing to do with you, dear human. You can just turn away from the content of your thinking and let your mind settle. But we don't do this. We don't do this because we just don't know that it works this way round. So when we have a shitty feeling, we like engage with it. Okay, so if we're having a feeling of insecurity and we're like, oh, it's because I'm not making enough money, it's because I haven't got enough customers, I haven't, like, whatever. So then we work to solve for these things. We're like, oh my God, how can I get more customers? And we end up like feeling really urgent and frenzied, like I need a new marketing campaign, or I need to do this, or maybe I need to borrow some more money, whatever. And we start like rushing to solve for the things. And what this does is like fill up our mind even more with more thought, more perceived problems. But what if, when that feeling of insecurity comes in, rather than thinking, oh, fuck, I need to do this, I need to do that, this is the problem, that's the problem, how am I going to sort it? Oh my God, blah, blah, blah. Wow, so busy. What if instead, when that feeling comes in, that feeling of insecurity comes in, we're like, okay, I know that I'm not seeing clearly right now. I know my mind is just full of all these thoughts, and Siobhan said they're not even mine. They're just like erroneous thinking that we absorb from just the world we live in, and that's okay. I'm innocently engaging with all these thoughts, which feel really personal, but what if they're not? And what if I don't roll around in them, engage with them, think that they're important, and need to do something to solve for them? What if my feeling is letting me know, hey, you just need to let your mind settle, okay? So our feeling, what if our feeling is just a real-time, 100% reliable, responsive alert system to let us know when we are just believing all of this shitty thinking, which we kind of swim in. But it's not for us, and I have to keep saying that. This is not for Siobhan or for you or for Nat or anyone. It's not about you. It's just the water that we swim in as fishes. So back to something that I said before. If I'm saying, oh God, well, we're just like living in a world of shitty thoughts, right? How do we make decisions? How do we do stuff? If I'm saying, oh, hey, that bad feeling is letting you know to turn away from the content of your thinking, then how do we navigate life? And this is a cool thing that I would love for you to ponder and look for yourself. Like, where do your good ideas come from? When do you feel like solutions kind of come to you? And what I've seen from myself and from the people I've worked with and just humans generally is that when our mind is quiet, it's a bloody different world. Like, things just seem easier. Yeah, we may not like the thing we have to do, but it doesn't seem like a massive deal anymore. Things just feel like, manageable and cool and calm. Like, I get like a lot of good ideas if I'm driving, or in the shower, or out in the garden, and lots of people have that. When we take our mind away from what looks like a problem, like we're like this, completely sped up in our mind. But when we see that the feeling that generates, the feeling of insecurity or anxiety or doubt or all of that, that's our clue, our cue as well, to settle down, to be like, okay, right, I don't need to deal with this right now, because we can trust that our mind does settle. And it always does. It always does. If you think of every single time that you've been in like a thought storm, it's always settled. Now, it probably doesn't happen as quickly as what you want, and it probably doesn't happen as often as what you want, as in calming down, because we think that we need to engage with the thinking and the problems that seem like they're problems in that state of mind. But what if, like, I would love for you to just explore this in your own life. What if we do see those shitty feelings, which we're going to get every day? I do this for my work and I feel shit every day, okay? But the difference is that I know it's just my thinking. That's not my fault. I'm just a human being. But I know that the bad feeling is saying, oh, hey, you can just turn away from that for a bit. And the more you see that more and more, the more that you can trust that this is how it works, the easier it is to settle down, the easier it is to disengage from that shitty thinking that looks super real in the moment, but isn't for you. Okay, so I talked way more than what I meant to then, but as you can probably tell, I just feel so strongly that all of us have just made an enormous mistake and we're just looking at thoughts and feelings like this super important thing that we need to pay attention to and we need to manage and all of that. And what I'm kind of saying is like, no, we don't. Our feeling is letting us know when we're engaging in thought, which has nothing to do with us. And when we settle down, which we always do, and we do even more when we can trust that that's how it works, there's our clarity, there's our good ideas and our solutions, and just those nice feelings, the nice feelings and the inspiration which probably inspired you to start your business in the first place. Okay, they're over here in a quiet mind, but we don't experience that enough because we're innocently thinking that all of this stuff needs to be sorted out, that all of this is a problem, when the problem isn't the same thing. It's not even necessarily there anymore when we let our mind settle. Okay, so after very long me talking, I said to Nat, I was like, oh, I'll only talk for a bit and then we'll have time for questions. So I would love to hear what you're hearing in that, if anything, and what kind of comes to mind to you when I've said those things. And I'm going to get a sip of water.
I just love, like what the work we did together. For me, learning about that survival brain, that is just trying to keep us alive, like you say. I think that was, a real discovery for me. Like you say, why don't they teach us that at school?
Yeah.
And so many of the things that you come across when trying to start your business or, in your everyday life, it's just your brain just trying to keep you safe and trying to keep you alive and trying not to waste too much energy.
Yes. Yeah. The energy thing. Yeah.
But I think what's really interesting, like, the society evolves so fast, but our brain seems to be quite behind. Our brain didn't evolve as fast as the world around us.
Yeah.
So I think it's like, how do we deal with that brain, that survival brain? Because we can't just go live in a cave and go hunting for our food, right? We need to use our brain that we have, and we have for hundreds of thousands of years in today's society. So I think that's the challenge, right?
I think, well, can you get a sense of even understanding what's going on can help with that? So while our brain, and there's some interesting studies around this saying that our brain is about 200,000 years old, like the programming of it. As you said, the society has evolved at such a breakneck speed. It's astonishing. And we know that evolution is slow. Okay. And our brain still is like a hunter-gatherer brain. So that's why we feel like we want to people please and all the things, because we need to stay in a tribe to survive. And it just wants to keep us safe. So understanding that, well, it depends. Like for me, it's been really helpful to just know, of course, like the first thing my brain thinks if I want to do something new in my business or in my life, my brain is like, but will you die though? Yes, you may die. Like, yeah, of course it's going to do that. Our brain is always going to do that. But understanding that we now live in the most safest times ever compared to when we used to be able to be chased by saber-toothed tigers, like the way I kind of see it, and you kind of figure this out for yourself, but it's like, oh, like my brain just wants to keep me safe. It doesn't understand that we live in times of immense opportunity and safety. It still thinks that I'm going to die at any moment. And that's nice. Like, it's nice that this is the same brain that will pull me out of the path of an oncoming car. So it's still kind of useful. It just doesn't understand that I'm just trying to build a business brain. I'm not trying to survive a bear attack.
Yeah, so that's really helpful for me when I start getting like anxious or stressed. Just now, okay, that's just my survival brain. What's, like you said, I'm not going to be eaten by a bear. My brain is telling me like, oh my God, all this bad stuff's going to happen. But it's just not. It's just my brain just trying to keep me in the same spot, right?
Yeah, like I bet you can think of a ton of times where you've absolutely dreaded something, right? Like particularly the first few times that you do something new. Like I remember the first time that I was speaking on stage, and I honestly thought I was just going to be sick on the audience. I was that nervous. And think of times where even new things. I remember the first time as well, I checked the oil in my car for the very first time. I was like, this is so terrifying. But any new thing is so fraught with like uncertainty to a brain that it's going to feel frightening. But think, and I'd love for everyone just to ponder this. Think of all the times where you've been terrified about something and it's been fine. A lot of the time it was great. And you're like, oh yeah, that wasn't that hard actually. I'm going to do that again. And sometimes it wasn't the best thing. It wasn't the most fun thing you did, but you did it. And you were like, oh, that wasn't that bad actually. That's happening all the time. And the more that we kind of see that, like, yeah, duh, of course our brain is going to freak out and it's not going to stop doing that. Like, what? This is the thing. We kind of expect it to maybe get easier over time. And sometimes it does. But then we like feel bad when we're not this confident like person all the time, even if we've been in business for years. It's because, yeah, we've never gotten rid of our brain. So what if we could find comfort in that? Like, of course, you're going to feel insecure all the time, but it doesn't actually mean anything. It's just your brain like, oh. If we can come to see that, it gives us a lot more freedom to be like, oh, well, I know my brain's going to freak out. So now what? Rather than, oh my God, my brain's freaking out. This means something.
Yeah. And I love what you say, that it happens to everybody, right? Because people sometimes think, okay, when I have this many clients, then I won't have any self-doubt, or when I make this much money.
Yeah.
But I remember reading about people like Jennifer Lopez or Tom Hanks, these really huge, super successful, famous people that they still feel like frauds, and they still,
yes.
Tom Hanks was saying, sometimes I can't wait. I'm waiting for the day everybody will realize I was such a fraud and they will take everything away, and so it's always going to be there. So I think knowing.
Isn't that interesting? Like really seeing that, like, because we often think, even I know how it works. And I'm still like, oh yeah, but when I get to this level, I'm going to be, no, I'm not. Like we're always going to feel not good enough and insecure and all the things because of our brain. Okay. But understanding that just gives us so much freedom. Like, and this is kind of what I was saying during my massive monologue, that like not thinking that means something, not thinking that that's a call to action, that we need to improve or something's wrong. It's like, oh, that's just what it means to have a human brain. So, okay, cool, tick, we know that. So now what else do we want to do with our life? Okay.
All right. Please, Gabby, does anyone have any questions or anything that you want to say or share? No.
No, sorry, I have a Rafaela here with me. She's like moving this.
Oh.
No, I just like take it and leave it with me and just let it just like sit in there. It's interesting. I'm not totally sure if I completely agree with it, but I mean, it's a good point, and I think it's a good starting point for some things, but yeah, I'm not sure if that's helpful for me. I don't know. I don't know if I completely click with everything.
Yeah, I love that you're saying that as well, because like why like I said in the thing, like don't listen to me. Be curious about your own experience. Like be curious about, well, where do my thoughts and feelings even come from anyway? And what I wanted to say, which I kind of touched on with Nat, was it's not like you maybe hear something, you're like, oh God, great, now everything's fine. I would love for you, just like you said, Gabby, like, okay, well, let's see what kind of settles down over time. And then I said to Nat that maybe we could do another follow-up call in a month or something. So let people think, oh, I'm not sure about that. Like, maybe not. And see what kind of occurs to you when you've had a chance to let it wash over you or whatever, and see how it plays out in real life. And then if people want to post in the group, then I can jump in and answer things. And then if we want to do another call, Nat, and just see what people think, particularly when people have had a chance to watch the replay, and be like, oh, actually, Siobhan, I don't know about this, I don't know about that, blah, blah, blah. So just see what settles with you, Gabby, and what's helpful and what's not.
Yeah, no, I think it could be helpful, and I totally get your point, but I feel it kind of be deeper than that. I mean, I totally agree that feeling is more important, for say one word. I mean, not like, might not be the word, but like it's more important tap into the feeling than the thinking, because it could be more real. But yeah, I feel that, and I do agree that it comes from, like, the thinking comes from that evolutionary thing, and it's just trying to keep us safe. But I also feel that it's kind of like a contraction expansion. I mean, like birth, you know, it kind of get you into this point. But if you can be in there and say, oh, okay, I'm just thinking, it's not real, it's just my thing or my thoughts trying to keep me safe. And then you, boom, you have that expansion and going to another level. So next thought will be, or next time that you feel that, will not only be like, oh, I'm just trying to survive. It's just like, oh, this is what happens. And then it comes like another layer of that same thought, but, you know, with a different perspective. And I feel, for me at least, I mean, I don't suffer anxiety, but I had suffered anxiety when I was, when the baby was really young, like 2 weeks or something. And I realized that I never had like that kind of anxiety, but I have anxious thoughts. So it was like, you know, so they've been there for so long, but just until that moment, they were too high that I felt that there was something, you know? So I just feel that it's kind of learning to be with it, and yeah, as I say, sit in front of it, and it's like, okay, I'm just gonna change the oil. It probably go good, it probably go wrong, but you never know if you don't try it. So just step in front and do it. I feel it's great. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I feel, yeah, that it could be a bit deeper than that. But I do agree what you're saying.
What do you mean by deeper?
Yeah, that I don't think it's just a survival thought. I mean, part of it is, and part of it is the society and all the things that come from it. But there's also our truths that we are creating in our head. So if we, like, for example, that you are saying that society and all the capitalism and everything is making us think that we need to be in this survival mode, because we're not surviving from the tiger stable, but we are surviving from paying our rents, paying mortgage, like doing shopping, like, you know, having groceries for eating. And we need to be on survival, because it's just like we are so tight in what we do, you know, because it's like, oh, petrol is rising, but you still need to put petrol in your car, you know. So, and we're still in this continuous survival mode, but not in the same way that we used to. So if we are like, if we manage to see, oh yeah, but I do not need to do that, there's other options, you know. So it's just like my brain is making me anxious because, yes, I might not survive if I don't have food in my house, but there's always ways to have food, you know, like, yeah. So that's what I mean by deeper. It's just like, yeah, there's that thought that making me think I need to survive. And if I clinch into that, it's like, oh no, I'm not gonna survive. What am I gonna do? It's just like, yeah, you're like in that train of like thinking, and then you're like, oh, the world is going to end and I'm going to be like, you know. But if you manage to say, oh, okay, it's just this stuff, and I might not have like whatever extra money for paying the extra petrol that is super expensive, but what if I do something different? What if I cycle? What if I take public transport? There's, you know, so that's what I mean by deeper, that there's always like, if you manage to be in front of that thought and say, okay, you're just a thought, but you're not here just to bother me, you're here to tell me something. How can I really face you and be upgrade my thoughts, like be more.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. And I think that maybe it's similar to something I said, but in your own way, which makes more sense. So we, of course, we have a thought like, oh my God, I can't put fuel in my car, or it's too expensive, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we're having those. And then we have like our calm thoughts, like our real thoughts, our true self, if you like, right? Which is uncontaminated by the survival things. Like it's just our kind of inner knowing or our wisdom and that will be so if you're stressed out about affording petrol in your car, it like feels like really urgent and like shit and like, but like what I heard in what you said was like, oh, hey, there is another thing available to us when we can see that thought for what it is, like this catastrophizing thought, whatever. There are other options, like maybe we can cycle, or maybe we can share the car with someone or whatever. Like there is other better thoughts available to us. So that's what I heard in what you said, which I think was such a good point, and so great to see that we have that. Like we're not at the mercy of these rubbish thoughts. We've got, like, the thought is fucking infinite. We can think whatever we like, but we don't control what comes in the first place. But we've got a say over what we do with it. Like, no, I'm not listening to that, So I love that you said that, Gabby.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, if I can just quickly add something, it's just, I feel sometimes we like to satanize our brain and our thoughts, and yeah, it could be cheaty sometimes, but if we manage to say like, well, it's just how it is, and yeah, it is, but I don't like the idea of maybe just dismiss it, but maybe that's helpful in the first place, if you just like dismiss it and let it go somewhere else and focus into the feeling or something.
I think for me it's not so much dismissing, but just noticing and just acknowledging what it is. It's like, okay, this thought, it is what it is, and where does it come from? And and then, like you say, just find a time where your mind is more calm and just noticing why the thought is there, right?
Yeah, just seeing it. Like you don't like dismiss, really isn't a very good word. You don't have to do anything with it at all. It's just a thought, not a message to be heeded.
All right, so quickly before we finish off, can you see the message from Liz? Can you see the chat? Yeah. So this was one of the questions that was in the Facebook group. So Liz, are you there? Can you hear us? So do you
Yes, I'm here.
Do you want to ask Siobhan just before we finish off?
Yeah, I mean, like she said, thought is infinite. So I've got a lot in my head right now, but mostly like I was hearing what you were saying. And like I say in the chat, like what you're saying, like about not basically not giving as much power to any thoughts that enter my head. That's helpful to me when I'm like concerned about like, and having imposter syndrome about like owning and running my own business. But I've also had like very difficult issues in the recent past with, I mean, this is why I'm starting my own business, with management and how they were relating to me and my feelings on things like safety. So I'm wondering where that line is drawn, because it feels like if I can disregard those on thoughts that are like, I don't know, haunting me, at what point might I be disregarding the thoughts and feelings of the people who might be working for me in the future? Does that make sense?
Can you say it in another way, maybe? What do you mean by the line? Like you said, where's the line? What line do you mean?
Like that shift from like disregarding those thoughts that are coming at me versus not hearing the people that are working for me about their concerns, and like, or hearing it and just disregarding those thoughts as well, instead of taking them seriously.
Okay, yeah, okay. Well, let me speak to that bit, and then you let me know if I've misunderstood you. So what I'm thinking that you're saying is, okay, I can kind of see when it's my own thoughts to dismiss the ones which are shitty or whatever. But do you mean let's say an employee of yours comes to you with a concern? Like, what is your concern? What is your worry, Liz? Is that you're not going to hear them and what they really mean, or that you're not going to agree with them? Like, what's the worry for you?
I honestly, my worry is that I would become my last manager, where I did go to them with a concern that, like, I felt like our safety was at issue, and I was just completely disregarded, and, you know, then also basically shunned. Like, at this point, I'm shunned. So
Yeah. Oh wow, I'm so sorry you had that. God, I've read different things from different people. I've never experienced that, but I can't imagine how that would feel. Really crappy to be just shunned, like you say, from people which should have your best interests at heart. Like, I'd like to think that if someone came to me with a safety concern, I'd be grateful rather than shun them.
yeah.
So that experience, like, no wonder that feels like it's kind of like burnt you, for the want of a better word. So what I'm kind of hearing is that if your employee, so you don't want to be your old manager.
Yeah.
It seems to me like you're already there by even knowing that, by even having that awareness. Like, we can't explain why you were treated that way, but we can, like, whatever their last agenda was, I don't know if your safety concerns that you raised, what impact that had on their own internal bureaucracy or their own whatever. Okay, so don't worry about that. What's cool is that you already are aware of this. So it seems to me that whatever an employee brings to you, so as I said before, your experience of that conversation will come to you by your own thoughts. Okay, so let's say they say, oh, hey, boss, I'm concerned about this, this, and this. You, excuse me, sorry. You can trust, like, your own feeling about that. So an example of that is, if you feel angry towards them for whatever they said, like maybe you don't agree or something like that, that anger is showing you that you're not kind of thinking clearly. So if you feel anger, or you feel frustrated, or you feel impatient, that's like, oh, hey, maybe I need to ask them to have a chat with me when I'm feeling a bit calmer. Like, I would love for people to hear in what I'm saying, the bad feeling is a clue. It's an enormously, enormously helpful clue that we're not kind of seeing things as they are. So I'm just guessing, but I'm thinking, if someone comes to you, Liz, one of your employees, with a thing, firstly, you're more attuned to even listen to them in the first place because of your experience. So that's lovely to hear. But if you feel rubbish in any way, like anger, frustration, impatience, any of those, then you can rely on that, like, to be like, oh, hey, I wonder if I'll ask to speak to them again tomorrow or later today or whatever. Like, it's your clue that you're maybe not hearing them fully or whatever. The feeling is there to guide us that we're not seeing clearly. Now, what do you hear in that? Is that helpful or not to you?
Yes, that was helpful. Yes, thank you.
I think it's like we know, like, when we're, overthinking one that's happening in our heads, we can take what you've just talked about today and realize what's going on. But it's like, what do we do when we notice that happening on someone else? Is that right, Liz? Like, so if you're talking to someone and you realize that person is just going on down, going crazy on the thoughts, it's like you say, you just probably the best option is to walk away and try again later. Or how do you deal when you notice that happening on someone else.
Yeah, like when they're overthinking. Yeah. I mean, that's such a great question, because I see that all the time. Like, we're all humans at some level of overthinking, trying to communicate with each other and trying to get things done. It's crazy. So, I mean, it looks like the best thing, if we know, right, if let's say that we all believe and trust that our mind will quiet down, and it will quiet down quicker when we're not engaging with it. So this person who's overthinking, it seems like they've got a problem. They feel like they've got a problem, just like when we're overthinking, we think we've got a problem, but we know they're okay. We know they're going to calm down. So as managers and employers, I think, well, it's up to you. I mean, you'd be guided by your own wisdom in the moment, like, well, what you would do about that. But like, to me, I'd be like, oh, I can see that they're feeling like this. And maybe I shouldn't take too seriously what they're saying, and let them know that I hear them. And then maybe they can like see how they feel, or how the situation looks different to them when they've calmed down a bit too. So to Liz's scenario, if they're coming to you, Liz, with like a thing which to you doesn't look like a problem, but it does to them, but you don't want to be like your old manager and disregard them, then I wonder what the communication would be like when you're both kind of settled, and you know that you both will settle. Like, does that kind of make sense? Where we're trying to solve problems when one or more people are making the problem with their own overthinking, and not that they can help that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool.
So something that comes to mind, which I do with people around relationships. So what's nuts, and this is like a relationship too, it's all relationships, like an employer and employee. But when two people in a marriage or something, they're trying to always solve their problems from within the bad feeling, from within the argument. Like, they have a massive row and then they're trying to sort it out, but from that state of mind, they're not in a position to be clear or calm or anything like that. So, and this is the opposite of what we're all taught. Like, when we're feeling all stressed out, we need to not be trying to solve problems, because the problems aren't the same when we calm down. Like, we all know how it feels to have a good night's sleep and wake up the next day and things just are different. And that applies everywhere. It applies to employers, employees, like, you know, our kids, our husbands and wives, and all the things. Like, if we just know, hey, and the feeling is always there to guide you. If you feel rubbish, just wait. Like, as best you can, just wait.
Awesome. It's such a fascinating topic, right? That we could talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
But like you say, maybe we'll give people the chance to watch the replay, and we might get together again if someone wants to do another session. But yeah, I think there's lots of really, really useful information there, and lots to think about, even though we don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just lightly, like, I wonder. Like, just be curious rather than thinking about it.
But so thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure to hang.
To come here and talk to us, and thank you, Gabby and Liz, for coming to the live session and for sharing. It's so interesting, you know, like, because, you know, hearing everybody else's perspective as well, you know, it just starts, you know, this amazing conversation, which I think is really important to have, you know, about our thoughts and our feelings and how it influences, you know, who we are as business owners and as humans, like you say, and how we treat others. And it's such a fascinating topic. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we'll be in touch, and we may do another session. I'll see how everyone is feeling after today.
Yeah. So if people want to put like questions or comments or anything in your group, then I'm happy to answer those.
Yeah, and have you shared your website and things on the group yet?
I'm not sure, but they can just contact me in the group anyway.
Yeah, so you can get, if you want to learn more about what Siobhan, she's got a really cool podcast as well, if you're into podcasts and things and you want to explore the topic a little bit more. And I will share the link to your website and your podcast under the replay as well, so people can learn more about what you do. So thank you so much, ladies. Have a good day, and I'll see you later in the group. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.